Hello friends, Tanya here with another video for Trinity Stamps. Today I am doing 3 cards with a white Christmas theme, all using one of our beautiful new stencils in the holiday release. This is the ribbon wrapped tree 6x9 stencil. It's a 2-part stencil, one sheet of stencil material, but 2 parts, and it creates this beautiful dimensional looking tree. And I just had to play with this stencil. Now here I stenciled the image in green, and then I came back with one of the layers and used the Distress Grit paste in the Opaque, which means solid, less see-through, and I added a little texturing to it. I wanted a snowy look to that one. More solid snowy, and then I did the same thing with the translucent, so you can see through this grit paste. And I added some rock candy glitter using this glitter duster. I had both this in my stash, and I haven't used it much, but man, was it perfect, because you don't get glitter everywhere. It just lightly dusts it on there. And the third one, I did go back to the Opaque Distress Grit paste, which is available in the Trinity store, both the translucent and the opaque. And I used the, oh gosh, what was this called? It's like Snowfall. It's a 2-piece 6x9 stencil set from Trinity Stamps, and I love it. I've used it for confetti. I've used it as Slimline Snowfall. That's what it's called. I've used it for all kinds of things, and I added that over the top of the tree. Now we're going to take these 3 pieces that I was simply playing with, and I'm going to make some lovely cards. 2 5x7s and 1 slimline. I also pulled out the Scripty Merry Christmas, and I die cut the detail word out of a gold foil cardstock and the shadow of that same word die set in vellum. And I'm going to adhere these together. I'm going to show you this just once. I am going to use another Scripty die set, which is again still available in the Trinity shop. If you haven't gotten those in the past, they are super good for, listen to my good English. They are beautiful on your Christmas cards. They add a real statement, and if you have a simple card design and you just want to add a little impact, these are perfect. Now mine stretched out a little bit because of the foil that I was using, but you can get those back into shape pretty simply just by following the shadow. I'm adding a little glue. Now the tittle I'm using here isn't actually the tittle. I lost my tittle. So this is actually the inside of one of the S's, but it still works perfectly. It actually has a little extra panache. Now I'm going to take my favorite way to add some spatter to any card, and that is with the liquid pixie dust. I keep it in this palette, and I just add a little water to rehydrate and add more liquid pixie dust when I need to. And you can see the beautiful shimmer there. I did die cut this panel using one of the modern embossed stacks for the A7 size. And I am putting this on a heavyweight white cardstock base for a 5x7 or an A7 card. I did put a little coaster blank behind that image, partly because I wanted the extra height and partly because all of the things that I did to it caused a little warping on the cardstock. I'm going to adhere these directly to the card panel using my Barely Art Precision Glue. And I'll put a heavyweight block on top just to let that dry. It does have some dimension, and this is vellum we're adhering. Just adding little bits of glue behind the thicker parts of the letters. Now I'm almost done with this card, but I need to add a little something to the inside. Oh, did I even show you that? That'll be later. We are moving on to the Slimline card. Now I'm also going to incorporate the snow drift or landscape die from the Forest Tree Line Border Slimline die set. This is a super, I'm using that super word a lot. This is a really awesome die set for any size card. You can use this with any size card. It is long enough to fit an entire slimline card, which means it's long enough to fit any of the cards that you might make. I use that die to create several different pieces to create layers of snowbank, and we're going to add some more of the liquid pixie dust, just spattering that all over the card front. Now, I did use Mowed Lawn and Rustic Wilderness inks in, I think that was the Distress ink. I'm not positive, don't quote me. It could have been just as easily the Distress inks. Now I'm going to glue down my layers of snow, and I started with the shimmery white cardstock. I used 3 different kinds of paper or cardstock to create these, and I did use the Slimline stitched border dies to add the same detail as I had on the tree panel that I die cut with the same die. I adhered the shimmery white cardstock first, and then the glitter cardstock in white or clear. And I'm going to try to adhere this vellum directly with the liquid glue, but I'm not patient enough. So as I'm trying to get it to stick, I wipe off the liquid glue and I pull out some double-sided glue tape, or score tape, or whatever it is you use, red line tape, and I'm adhering that to the glitter. So between vellum being a non-porous surface, as is glitter paper or glitter cardstock, those 2 elements, trying to stick those together, it was just best to use a dry glue. The double-sided tape works perfectly. And then I'm going to add my last layer of glitter paper. Since it is the side of the paper that has some porosity, the glitter paper sticks well to the vellum. I had gotten some crumbs of something not that I wanted in there, some maybe some glue or residue from ink, and I used my pointy tool, my pokey tool, to get that out from behind there. I had a little coaster blank behind this panel for the same reasons as the first one. It was a little warped and I wanted a little dimension. And this die leaves the barest edge on this 3.5 by 8.5 inch card base, or for my slimline card. And then I'm going to add a couple of sentiments. This is from the Winter Winds, I think it's called, Winter Winds stamp set. And it has these fun sentiments that you can just stamp or you can heat emboss, which is what I'm going to do. I have a couple pieces of heavyweight white cardstock that I have treated with the anti-static powder tool, and I'm stamping them a couple of times with the Juicy embossing ink so I can get a good solid stamping. Now I'm going to use some gold embossing powder. I'm really on a gold embossing powder kick lately. It has such a rich look to it, and it's just perfect with this particular card, especially since I used gold foil paper for the sentiment. Just using I dump it on and tap the sides to get that embossing powder to really adhere to the ink before I dump it off. And we're going to heat set that using our heat tool, waiting for it to get nice and shiny and raised and looking just gorgeous. It does do a little warping to the paper, but since I used a heavyweight cardstock, this is a 100 to 120 pound cardstock, I'm not sure. It was in my white scrap heavyweight cardstock stash. I have an envelope that holds all of my heavyweight white cardstock scraps, so I can grab those easily. Now I'm going to use a little bit of low-tack tape to adhere my dies to these sentiments that I've heat embossed, so I can die cut those quickly. I love how this goes perfectly around these sentiments because I love that bubble cut look, but I don't love doing the bubble cutting. Now I do plan to die cut additional pieces that will glue right behind the sentiments to get a little dimension behind them. You can do this with your heavyweight white cardstock scraps, or you can use coaster blank, or you can take little pieces of, you can do this with fun foam. There's so many ways to add dimension. We've all developed ways that we love to do this. Using scraps is a great way to do it. Now I'm going to add a little liquid adhesive here with my fine tip applicator and glue these two pieces together. It's super easy. You just lay them right over the top, and then I use my fingers to kind of make sure that the edges all line up. We've got the salutations, easy for me to say, and snowy. So that is the sentiment I've chosen for the outside of this card. We're just going to center those nicely on the card. So far we have used a die cut foil and vellum combo for a statement sentiment, and this time we're using die cut heat embossed sentiments on the front of the card. I'm just trying to make sure this is straight using the grid lines on my work surface to make sure that the sentiment is pretty straight on the card. And then we're just going to add our snowy for our total snowy salutations. Now on the inside of each of these cards, I did take the same stencil that I used on the front, and I added a little tree on the inside of the card. This is really fast and easy to do. There are etched lines to help you line it up with previous stenciling, which is an awesome feature of all of the layering stencil sets from Trinity Stamps. It makes it a breeze to create projects with our layering stencils. And I don't even know which green this is. It was whatever green was left on my brush. If you use brushes that you don't clean between, you will find that you have enough ink on them most of the time to create a project without having to pull out an ink pad. I like that. Now this is a blender brush that I have used with liquid pixie dust. I've also used it with the Cosmic Shimmer Opal Blaze, so it has lots and lots of shimmer on it. I just spritzed it with a little bit of pearlized water to rehydrate the shimmer, and this is what I got. That would make a great card right by there by itself. I love the shimmer it added to one of those stenciled layers. Now I have some wintry white embellishments here. I believe that's what they're called. And I will have those linked in the description box below. And I'm going to scatter these liberally all over the front of this card. I love that it adds a little bit of extra shine on our snowfall around this tree. I really love that peaceful look of snowdrifts and crisp white background with the pixie dust and the rhinestone snowfall. So that was card number 2. Card number 3. I had actually done the stenciling on a couple of pieces of paper that were a full-sized 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock cut in half the long way. So they were 4 1/4 by 11 inches long. Now I'm using the Slimline stitched panel in the largest size to die cut this tree out, and it does fit in there perfectly. As it should, since it is a slimline stencil set. Now I'm not going to use that on a slimline card. We're going to make another 5 by 7 card. I'm going to use this 4.5 by 6.5 inch die from the Modern Embossed A7 stack to create this strip that's going to go down a panel. Now here I am using the big Snowflake cut and foil. I'm using the foiling plate from this set, and I'm creating beautiful background of foiled snowflakes all over this panel of cardstock. This is a 8.5 by 5.5 inch or a half sheet of cardstock that I foiled these snowflakes all over because that's the way I can pick the best spot. Sometimes I like a little bit of wiggle room, so I do more foiling or stamping than I need so I can pick my favorite spots. Yet again, I'm going to spatter with lots of liquid pixie dust all over this tree panel. I tried not to get it on the foiled panel I wanted to create that crisp, clean panel with the spattered panel over the top. Now I'm using the Happy Holidays, Scripty Holidays, I think it's called, die set with a different metallic or foiled cardstock. And I had added a little bit of coaster blank behind the foiled panel. And I just took some scraps of heavyweight white cardstock and put those behind the tree panel because I didn't want a ton of height behind these. I'm going to center that on the foiled panel, and I did think about using some foil cardstock on the edges of the tree panel to add a little more highlight, but I like the subtleness of this one. It's an understated, elegant card, and I can't stop looking at it. This is probably my favorite of these 3 cards. It turned out so amazing. I am just thrilled with it. And it wasn't terribly difficult to create. You could definitely mass produce this. You wouldn't necessarily have to do the foiling, but I think the foiling really adds something to this card. Again, applying it with liquid adhesive, didn't want to add any more dimension to those sentiments. And I did stencil on the inside of that card also. So here is a quick recap of the 3 cards I created with several different items from the new release. If you're looking for Christmas card stuff, this is beautiful, beautiful holiday collection that Trinity Stamps came up with. If you're interested in any of the supplies that I used today, check out the description box below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I love to hear from you anytime. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please take a moment to do that now. And until next time, bye-bye.